Sarah published in Nature, was it, as a PhD student?
I was the second author on a Nature paper.
As a grad student?
As a grad student. But it's a big effort. It takes a lot of effort to get, like you said, to get into Nature Science. And the 7 science papers that are coming out next month, it's again an international effort. It took a lot of work. Yeah.
7 science papers?
Yeah.
On which you're a co-author?
I'm the first author on the lead paper, which is the how do you design a genome. And then the rest of the papers, the other 6 are here's how we did chromosome 10, here's how we did chromosome 12, here's how we did chromosome 6.
Is anybody else angry right now? Who's going to question your technical proficiency? That is just outrageous. Another question.
I'll give you some background details of mine. So I did my undergrad at Indian Institute of Technology in mechanical engineering. But I started my research work in second year of engineering itself. I had a very good mentor who supported me, and the thing is, I always work in interdisciplinary fields. So I also work in computations, mostly computations, and then I tried to apply it for the fluid flow problems actually. So and then I got many papers published in my undergrad as well, around 3-4 papers. And then I joined Purdue as a graduate student in aero department. So the good thing again, there is mentor support. If I say that I'm going to apply machine learning to or fluid flow problems, they will agree. But then it comes to the jobs. So when I apply to the companies, I'm neither in computation field, I'm neither in mechanical engineering or aeronautics engineering. So I have a very hard time getting into any job that fits the description. And I want to get in this field, computation science, but even I want to get a PhD in computation science, but I'm really not sure whether I should go into it. Do you have some advice on it? Might be very specific.
Every time I hear machine learning, I look at you, but is there anybody else want to jump in?
Maybe have anyone look at your CV other than you, I mean your mentors and everybody, because it's very important at the time of you trying to find a job, you need to market yourself for that job. You cannot have many times a generic CV and send it everywhere. If you are good at fluid dynamics, then make your CV stand out in that area and send that CV to those particular industries. And then make another CV that is more tailored towards computation, interdisciplinary computation, and send that to the places that you think. So don't send a generic CV, have somebody revise that, and yeah, that would be my advice for that.
My advice would be, especially when hopping field boundaries or domain boundaries, to break down the skills you got in the first domain such that the second domain might be able to pick out which parts are good for them. Just saying that you can do computational science maybe for one field is, oh, we understand what goes into that. And for another field, they're like, so you program? When you hop fields, you want to break that down to, I can program in these languages, or I can. For biology, it tends to be more about protocol things and experiences, but you have to make your CV look good for where it's going. So where you came from is not a good target for your CV. It looks good to your department. It's not going to look good to industry. You really do have to think about how someone who doesn't have a PhD in your field will look at it and understand it. That's the best advice I can give.
I have something that branches off of what Trilce was saying about, and you were saying about, having a specific CV, like, this is more for the undergraduates who are applying to a PhD program. Like, look, don't just apply to a PhD program because of the name or because it says machine learning. Like, actually look at the professor's research projects, and actually look at what his students have been working on. Like, actually read their papers. Like I'm like all the schools that I had applied to, I read all, like almost like, let's say like, not all, like at least 10 to 15 papers, and like really like see like, is this kind of something that I want to be doing? Is this the direction, like you can kind of start seeing the direction that the professor's taking your group in. You're like, is this the direction I want to be in? And so this is for the undergraduates, like definitely I think, I don't know, a lot of you guys when you're seniors or juniors, like this is like the time, because it does take a long time to do all that work for all the schools that you're doing. But then when you apply, you can, in your CV, you can really show like, this is why I want to join your group. Like, so-and-so project is like what inspires me to apply to your group. Yeah.
I'd also like to put in another plug for the National Lab System. We have a very diverse group here. I was imagine I might have the most diverse career path for one person. I've worked in, my first job out of school was in a consulting firm. And then I was at the Naval Research Lab, which is a government lab where the researchers are all federal employees, part of the Department of Defense, of course. And then I was at the Sandia National Laboratories, which is a national laboratory where everyone was contractors. So I've been private consultant, federal employee, contractor, was professor for a while at City College of New York, and now I work for myself. And when you talk about jumping disciplines, the National Lab System really stands out in that regard. When I go back to what first got me interested in engineering and science, I kind of go back and forth in my head about whether it was first aerospace engineering or computer science. I guess it probably was aero because I learned about building model rockets back in elementary school and then started picking up coding in my junior high, 7th grade. But I've always been really passionate about both. And one of the big difficulties for me is that in academia in particular, there's a lot of what people call stovepiping, where you get these disciplines that form and they're vertically integrated in the sense that you're going to go on this straight linear path, basically. And I have an interest set that slices across a lot of different disciplines, but the word slice is kind of appropriate there because within each discipline it's actually kind of narrow. So it's really broad in one sense and really narrow in another. And that was very challenging for me. So my PhD was in mechanical engineering. When I went to Sandia, I went to the Naval Research Laboratory, which, I was going there from being a professor, where I was in mechanical engineering, but I had these real interest in software engineering, and really didn't have a clue how I was ever going to publish papers. I didn't even think that the stuff I was doing was publishable. Later found out it was. And I oftentimes refer to my job interview at the Naval Research Lab as my coming out party, because it was the first time I gave a job talk that was all about software, even though all my degrees were for mechanical engineering. And they hired me. And they hired me actually into the chemistry division because I had a background with, it was a group that studies fire, and I had a background with investigating fires and explosions. I spent a lot of time crawling around burnt out buildings and crashed cars and all this stuff. And then when I went to Sandia National Labs, that was the first time that I actually got hired into a computer science organization. And it was at the Livermore site of Sandia, and the computer science center at that site. Computer science is actually the most common degree, but it's not the majority. It's about 40%. And so you mostly find a lot of people who, kind of like me, maybe studied one field, like engineering or chemistry or what have you, and sort of wandered into the computer science aspect of what they're doing. And the National Lab System, you can do that. And it's much harder in academia, partly for some practical concerns. I mean, I couldn't get hired into the computer science department very easily because I couldn't teach most of their classes. My interest and skill set in that field is narrow, So, so if you're thinking about really wanting to broaden and be interdisciplinary and hop across fields, the National Lab System is a great place to do that. I think we have time for maybe one more question. Yeah. So I think most of the speakers at least will be around afterwards. Why don't we take one more? I saw your hand first, if you don't mind coming up. And then lunch will be in here. And right after we're done with this session, we'd like to take a group photo. So please don't rush out too quickly in this order.
Right, so the topic of my question is looking ahead. So in your area of expertise, what are some future trends that you either have seen emerging or have heard about? What are some challenges you expect to see what are some hopes that you have, and you can answer this from a very technical point of view.
She pointed at you. Who would like to take that?
So I started with the corner, now I'm on Men's Landing, and in a couple of years it's going to be something new, and then there's going to be assisted computing. So to me, I think being able to write your programs that are architecture independent, regardless of if it's Medicore, if it's GPU, etc. You want your program, your scientific code, your machine learning program, whatever it is, to be able to run efficiently and optimize on all these architectures. So, to all my science people there, please, good party.
I'm in the petrochemical replacement, so it's like the next hope. There's some stuff we make now from petrochemical that we used to make from biomass. Nylon used to be made from oats. It was easy, buy the oats brand from Quaker Oats Company, and you hydrolyze it and make nylon. And then petrochemicals got so cheap that in the 60s they switched to non-renewable sources, and all of the nylon on the planet's now made from. We could go back. And that's where I think it'll be exciting. It's not necessarily the biofuel, but all the other things that we've forgotten we used to be able to do without petrochem, and being able to say, now we have advanced our chemical, biological, and computational sciences well enough that we can go back and make some of these biological processes more amenable, more efficient, and competitive with petrochemicals.
So I'll focus on a little bit of the storage side. We're moving the memory closer to the CPU so the data doesn't have to go as far. The next step is to move the storage system closer to the memory, which is closer to the CPU. So flash storage is growing. There's going to be a bunch of fabs making flash storage, enterprise, cheap storage. So the whole flash and NAND is going to be moving soon.
So in data, I mentioned before the 3 Bs of big data, and I also said there are like another 50 Bs around. So all those other 50 Bs like veracity and many other challenges that are associated with data are going to start coming out because data is just increasing, and not just because of new instruments, but because of social media and that. So HPC also has been traditionally more used into the natural sciences. Now with this big amount of other data that has to do with human lives, I think humanities and like human sciences, sociology and all that is going to start needing HPC, and they just have no expertise in that. So bridging HPC into these other domains that are going to very soon start needing it, that's also probably going to happen.
Okay, thank you. Each of these folks are rock stars, so we might want to get some autographs. And imagine there are going to be great things coming. There's so many more questions I wanted to ask each of you, so I'll hold those for the lunchtime. And why don't we, Dorian, where do you want to take the picture?
So we're going to go out to the corner right there.
Okay.